I donated to Biden, which I did. I supported Kamala Harris from day one, which I did. I even starred in Biden's victory video, America the Beautiful. I was in it. I did more in the 2020 election to actively work for someone's campaign. I did more than I've ever done in my entire life for any candidate whatsoever. And I'm disgusted. I said a year in, I'm disgusted with them both. I'm disgusted with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. I have been a consistent Democratic voter for 16 years.
And this is what's happening to liberals across the country. They're leaving the Democrat Party. They're waking up. I woke up a little earlier than this guy. Trump was the first Republican I'd ever voted for. And I don't consider him a conservative. He's more of a libertarian. I believe that Trump was our first libertarian president, because he did a lot for criminal justice reform, and he did a lot for the LGBT community and all that kind of stuff. So certainly a libertarian, and I am a Christian, so that's a complicated topic that I'll talk to you about on another video. But God gave everybody free will, and we're all sinners. So I believe that Trump was not the authoritarian that everybody pretended he was. In fact, he tried to give a lot of rights back to the states. He tried to give education back to the states. He tried to give land that the federal government had hoarded from the states. He tried to give some of that back. Some took it. He gave the Navajo Nation, after years, even decades of trying to get their land. Trump made that possible. So the media really twisted Trump around into something he was not, and misled us. And that's kind of the point to this video, is the media has been manipulating a lot of the people on the left, or liberals, for a long time. And now liberals are starting to wake up. The leftists, which is very different than a liberal, Marxist leftism and stuff, have taken over the Democrat Party. So any real liberal that believes in freedom, that believes in individualism, which is a big liberal, used to be a big liberal belief, individualism, not groupthink, and civil rights and rights, including rights for women, which men are taking away now, claiming that they're women and getting into our sports and taking away our opportunities and stuff like that, even though it's common sense to know that any man, or most men, are going to be stronger, bigger boned, more vascular, bigger hearts, genetically more fit than women naturally. So a lot of liberals, and that's one of the reasons he left, is because women's rights are no longer being protected. We're being called menstruating people and birthing persons and stuff like that now. They're trying to completely ruin women, and I think that's wrong. So the Democrats, I think one of the ways that they have misled so many people is because they never give the full story. And so people who watch CNN, MSNBC, and even Fox to a lesser extent, they're only given a little bit of information about it, and then they throw racism or homophobia, or that's the reason. It's because of people are racist or white supremacists or something. And that's just not true. I mean, look at Kyle Rittenhouse. After people learned all the facts of Kyle Rittenhouse, they looked back and they go, wait a minute, Kyle Rittenhouse was not a white supremacist. He actually was he was a supporter of Black Lives Matter, for goodness sakes, They didn't report that, though, did they? They didn't say, hey, Kyle Rittenhouse was there in support of Black Lives Matter, and he just had his gun in order to protect himself. And he was out there giving medical stuff. They didn't report it that way. Instead, they reported that there was this huge, this white supremacist out there and just doing all these white supremacist things. Even Biden carried on this completely evil, wrong narrative to people. And of course, you had the Russia hoax, which for 4 years they said that, Trump was in collusion with Russia. Ended up being that the DNC actually paid for that dossier that actually spread that news, and the media carried that banner, even though they knew it was false. So a lot of these stories, like anti-immigration, CNN will take the border and they'll say, oh, these people are racist because they don't want immigration. That nobody has ever said they did not want immigration. It is so dishonest. People are saying they do not want illegal immigration. Illegal immigration, which means they want people vetted before they come here. They want people to assimilate properly here. They don't want people to come here that are terrorists or that are child rapists or that are going to harm their communities, are going to be a burden on their tax dollars and all that kind of stuff. They want people that really want to be here. Or they want people that are really, really super oppressed, which does not really happen in Mexico. People from Mexico are coming here for jobs. They're not being oppressed. And under the name of this false verbiage of compassion, CNN spins this as compassion, Trump putting kids in cages. And then when it turns out when Biden's in charge, not only are the kids in cages, or even more cages, they built more cages, by the way. Now kids are sex trafficking of children, sex trafficking of women, children being abandoned on the border. The cartels pretty much have full reign. I live 200 miles from the border, and I can tell you the media doesn't report hardly any of this to you. So the media is manipulating our friends and family. And I have friends that believe in this crazy crap too. They manipulate these people because they don't give them the full story. And this is why Fox's ratings are going up so much. And so many Democrats and liberals are starting to watch Fox News. Because Fox News, although they do spin crazily, and I would not just trust everything you hear from Fox News. I would definitely vet everything that you hear from any source. But that's why a lot of liberals and Democrats are now starting to watch Tucker Carlson. I could not even believe that. But yes, even Tucker Carlson, because at least they're getting the information so that they can make an informed decision, not just hearing Rachel Maddow say, oh, they're closing the border and it's because they're racist. Because nobody believes, no intelligent person is going to believe that. So they do that. Voting ID is another thing. Voting ID is a very logical reason for why people want voting ID. In fact, 80% of all Americans want voter ID. 77% of black Americans want voter ID. Why? Because even though there was probably not enough fraud to get Hillary elected in 2016 to overturn that election, because that's what they said in 2016, and there's probably not enough fraud to overturn the election in 2020. Okay, there's still fraud, and that's without a doubt. You can go to the Heritage Foundation; they track all of this stuff. Plenty of fraud to debate to see from Democrats, from Republicans, from everybody. So definitely fraud. In America, if the politicians were listening to us, they'd be like, "We need to fortify our elections. We need voter ID." The people are asking for voter ID. 80% of Americans are asking for voter ID. Democrats don't have an argument for that, and they don't want voter ID because they're bringing all these illegals in, which I used to think was a conspiracy theory by the alt-right, but I mean, every time I think it's a conspiracy, it turns out to be true. There's no other excuse for just letting a bunch of illegals, unvaxxed illegals in here, just to let them in and let them wander the streets. Mostly they're being dropped off in red states. Isn't that strange? And then for them to turn around and say it's not for voting, I'm sorry, it has to be for voting. I mean, give me a good reason why you won't let people fly in from Europe without having a vax, but you'll let 2 million illegals from every country in the world, no matter what color of skin they have, come in from over the border without any vaccine, without a mask, and then you take them and you drop them off in Florida or Tennessee or Texas or some other red state. Why not drop them off in California where they have sanctuary cities? If it was about that, why not do that? So the Democrats have a tendency to how they manipulate their viewers. And I say their viewers because MSNBC, CNN, that's pretty much an extension of the DNC. How they manipulate their viewers is they give them a tiny bit of truth. Illegals are coming over the border. And then they'll turn it around and say, but the Republicans don't want them there because they're racists. They don't give you the reason why they don't want them in here. They don't give you the reason why we want voter ID. They don't give you the reasons why the vaccine mandates are wrong. Here's another example. They sit down and they say, well, there's religious exemptions on the vaccine. So I don't know why these people are complaining. Just follow a religious exemption. Did you know that most religious exemptions are being denied? They are. They're being denied. There's, and I forget what story it's from. I believe it was The Hill that did a story on it, but you can Google it. I mean, you can get information. And always vet. I vetted this before I'm bringing it up to you. The I think it was like 70,000 military personnel filed religious exemptions, and almost every single one of them were denied. They were denied. So when they only give you half the story, they could just file a religious exemption. No, that's not true. They cannot just do that because they get denied. And CNN, and MSNBC, they don't tell you that information. They do not report the science on natural immunity. They don't report the science on a lot of the COVID stuff, which I can't mention here because, I don't want to give you medical advice. I don't want to make YouTube mad, but you can go out there and Google it. There's a lot of the science, and I believe in science, that they just aren't allowed to report because it doesn't float with the narrative. And you need to ask yourself and be a critical thinker and think to yourself, why is that? Why don't they want to give us all the information? Why are they only giving us bits and pieces? Why are they really trying to control what we think? What is their end game here? And you can say maybe it's the Great Reset. I know Glenn Beck talks about that a lot. And you would think that the Great Reset is a great right-wing conspiracy theory. But if you go to their foundation out there, if you go and you watch them, they say it. They're saying it themselves. It's not a conspiracy theory. CNN and MSNBC and Fox, they just choose not to report on it. Just like Fox chooses not to report on the fraud in the election, or they don't choose to report on natural immunity too much. Tucker Carlson will dive into it a little bit, but I think he has a little bit more backbone than the rest of them. They don't report on MSNBC and CNN. They don't report on Hunter Biden's laptop, and the obvious relation to his father and the conspiracies in Ukraine, that actually really happened. Could you imagine? So for 4 years for Don Jr., he was beat up, and Trump was pulled over the coals over his son having, running or being a vice president of Trump Corporation. So he had to kind of drop out of that and no longer do that. And Trump couldn't, give his hotels at a discount to foreign nationals and stuff, because foreign leaders, because it looked like he was trying to buy them off and all that kind of stuff, or give them special favors. So he stopped letting them stay at his hotels and stuff to cool the media down. But look at all the stuff that Hunter Biden and his father has gotten away with Ukraine. Look at all that, and it's not being reported. If you watch CNN, MSNBC, you don't know anything about it. But there are very many reputable sources out there for you to find that information at. But it manipulates the people, like some people in my family, and it makes me cry to hear that she believes some of this stuff, because and that she's being misled so much, because these policies trickle down locally to us, right? And so now I have people, including my own family, trying to keep my children from being educated the way I want to educate them, or from keeping our border safe. Some of you know that my oldest daughter, there were 4 illegal immigrants that had came into my house with guns and tried to kidnap her out of my home. And even though this person in my life, my family that I love, saw this firsthand, she still is voting and supporting this uncompassionate kind of behavior and policies, because it is incompassionate. It is, when you allow an open border, you give cartels and bad people the opportunity to rape, pillage, steal. The farmers on the border are begging for help. The border patrol are begging for help. You have people coming over the border. You had 34 people die in a boat the other day that capsized trying to come over here to get jobs. And if Biden, of course, and Harris would have had tougher policies, so many lives would have been saved. So many children would not be raped. There was even a story about parents who were allowing the cartel to rape their own children in order to get across the border. There is nothing, and of course they're still doing the cages thing. There is nothing compassionate about what Biden does on the border. Trump's policies were far, far more compassionate than what's happening now. And look at Portland. They never reported Portland like they did January 6th. January 6th, if you would have actually watched the reporting on January 6th, you believe it's really an insurrection. It wasn't. It was a bunch of people that were upset, and they wanted representation. And that capital is their capital, just like the people in Portland. Now, the difference is the people in Portland, when they wanted to go, disrupt their capital in Portland, they decided they were going to burn things and just destroy. But the guy with the shaman, it's a Q shaman, and he's kind of got some nutty ideas, yeah. But he walked up there and he sat in the chair in some sort of a weird, furry thing, and held a flag, and he's getting 2 years. Yet the people from Antifa, Harris was like, Kamala Harris, our VP, was like, hey, I'll just get you guys bought out. I'll do a fundraiser and we'll bail you guys out. They, get out. So there's a huge double standard out here. And then Biden talks about unity, of course, and you can't unify when you're calling people racist and white supremacist when they have very legitimate reasons for what they believe. And it has nothing to do with color of skin. It has very good foundation. And they know that. They know that voter ID, for example, has a good legitimate cause and reason to happen. They know that securing the border has a very good cause for happening. They know this stuff, but they don't share this with their viewers. And so their viewers are sitting there in the dark going, oh my gosh, white supremacy is a big deal. Oh my gosh, every story they do on white supremacy, I'm being hypnotized, white supremacy, instead of, oh my gosh, women and children are getting raped on the border and they're not telling you about that. It makes me crazy, Women's sports. I tell you what, they're telling you one side, poor trans people, they just want to participate. Well, you know what? They can participate as their own gender and their own sport. Nobody's disallowing that. Nobody is saying you can't participate. They're just saying you're not a biological woman. Your shoulders are bigger. I don't care if you stop testosterone. Your shoulders are still bigger. Your bones are still more thicker. Your muscles are still bigger than a woman's. Genetically, you're still a man. Yes, wear a dress if you want. God bless you. Do what you want to do. You live your life the way you want, and I'll live my life the way I want. But don't get out there and pretend you're something you're not and take the rights away from people that are more vulnerable than you are. It's just, and no liberal would ever stand for this, ever. The people that are in the Democrat Party right now are Marxist leftists. They're not liberals. And we really need to stop letting them hide behind the liberal title. We really do. I think that's... So anyway, we're not rapists. We're not white supremacists. We're not racists. We're not homophobes. We actually have very legitimate reasons and causes. And even many of us have many liberal leanings. And we could unify with all of you if you would change the channel on your stations, or at least get informed, or at least wake up to the narrative that you are being brainwashed with. There is more to the story than just everybody's a white supremacist or racist or a coon or Uncle Tom. They're just name calling, and it's not unifying. Biden is name calling too, calling people son of bitches. So those of you that were crying about Trump's immaturity, please do the same thing. Hold your own people accountable to the same things you were holding Trump to. Stop calling names. Stop being big babies. Research. Sorry for the long video, but there was a lot to go through. I want you guys to have a great day. I hope you guys can have critical thinking, employ that with your politics. And for those of you that are listening, I just want to say, anybody, which is probably nobody, but this is mostly for me. God bless. Have a good day and wake up.